Apple recently announced that the annual Worldwide Developers Conference will be held starting with a keynote address on Monday, June 9th. This year's event runs from June 9th through June 13th. It will be an online event, with a big keynote address and platform State of the Union aired on the first day.
Apple just confirmed its next major press event, WWDC. Here's when it is, how to watch, and what will be announced. Before I get into it, if you want to keep up to date with the latest Apple news and reviews, hit that subscribe button. WWDC is Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, and while it's focused on app and game developers, there are a lot of announcements for users as well. This year, DubDub, as it's known to attendees, will take place June 9th through June 13th. It's an entire week-long online event with a kickoff keynote on the first day. So on Monday, June 9th, you'll be able to watch Apple's press event live online with all its reveals and announcements. The stream will be up on Apple's website as well as its official YouTube channel. Don't get bamboozled by people posting fake ones with crypto scams. For devs and students, there will be a chance to head to Cupertino in person, where you can meet with Apple engineers, watch the keynote and State of the Union live, as well as other activities. But let's talk about what's coming, the exciting stuff. We'll be getting all new preview versions of Apple software. That includes iOS 19, iPadOS 19, watchOS 12, visionOS 3, and tvOS 19. Of course, macOS 16 too. We've heard a little bit about these updates so far. iOS and iPadOS 19 are supposed to be receiving visual design overhauls, probably the biggest since, iOS 7 maybe? It said this will be influenced by the glassy visionOS style. It's said to be influenced by the glassy visionOS style. If you read into the WWDC invite, it even looks a little bit like visionOS. Recently, Jon Prosser has shared a screenshot of what he says the new Messages app will look like. Similarly, Prosser has revealed details of an overhauled camera app too. I'm sure all this will be somewhat controversial. Let me know down below in the comments if you want Apple to redesign iOS or if you would prefer a bigger focus on new features or stability. visionOS 3 is also apparently a huge update. One of the things that I'm excited for here is support for PSVR controllers that has been rumored. That could unlock a big future of gaming on Vision Pro, especially if Apple makes any other gaming-related announcements. For tvOS, there is a good chance Apple may get rid of that platform entirely, and instead replace it with HomeOS for all home products. If Apple decides to keep tvOS, Apple could either intro HomeOS as a new platform that will run on HomePod and its smart display, or Apple could update tvOS and wait to reveal HomeOS alongside the smart display at a future event. If you want to know more about that smart display and all of Apple's smart home plans, there's a lot of them, check out the video that I've linked here. That brings us to new hardware though. Typically, DubDub is reserved for software announcements, but there has been exceptions. We got a Vision Pro at WWDC. We've also seen new versions of the Mac Pro and Mac Studio. MacBook Air even got updated at DubDub. But Apple just released a lot of new hardware. We saw new iPad, iPad Air, iPhone 16e, MacBook Air, Mac Studio. The list of possible hardware that Apple has ready to launch is quite small. The most likely hardware candidates include an updated Mac Pro or that aforementioned smart home display. Immediately following the keynote on Monday, Apple will issue the first round of developer betas for all its new software platforms. Public betas will follow in July, where anyone is able to take the updates for a spin. Let me know in the comments what you're most excited to see this year. Be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with the latest news that matters most, and I'll see you all in the next video.
An iPad retrieved from the River Thames in London, after sitting underwater and lodged in mud for more than 5 years, became the crucial piece of evidence that helped police solve a complex international criminal network. The crime ring involved museum heists, luxury robberies and an attempted murder, according to a new report. No big surprise that iPad evidence helps convict criminals, except under these extreme conditions. The extraordinary case highlights the remarkable resilience of Apple's iPad technology. It maintained crucial evidence integrity even after years of submersion. The case also demonstrates how digital devices can become key pieces of evidence in solving complex criminal investigations, and that's even when criminals believe they have successfully disposed of incriminating technology. Looking for a gun, London police discovered the iPad mini under an inch of sand on the foreshore of the River Thames, just downstream from the O2 Arena during an investigation last November, BBC News reported Monday. Despite remaining underwater for more than 5 years and being caked in mud, the device's SIM tray opened for forensic experts. They cleaned the tablet and retrieved a functioning Vodafone SIM card. The recovered data from the iPad mini proved instrumental in convicting 3 men, Lewis Ahern, Stuart Ahern and Daniel Kelly, for their involvement in the near-fatal shooting of Paul Allen. Allen is a notorious armed robber connected to Britain's largest cash heist, $68 million. He also figured into a sophisticated museum theft in Switzerland, police said. The photographic styles feature built into your iPhone's camera can give your pictures a radically different aesthetic. And once you nail down your personal photo style or styles, you can make sure all your pictures use these specific filters.
Here's how you can take and edit pictures on your iPhone using a bunch of these cool different aesthetics. This is a feature called Photographic Styles, available on the iPhone 16 series and later, except the iPhone 16e. In the camera, tap the Photographic Styles button in the upper right corner, with the icon of a square grid with the dot in the middle. Undertones change how it processes skin tones and color, they're over on the left. Mood changes the color processing of the whole image, on the right. Drag your finger on the grid below to customize the effect. Left and right will change how colorful it is, from black and white to vibrant. Swipe up and down to make the image brighter or darker. Some filters have an additional color meter below to change the balance. Take the picture with the small white button on the right, tap the back button on the left to adjust other settings. This does so much more than add a color filter on the image. It changes how the camera processes color on a much deeper level. That means you get much more detail in shadows and in bright highlights. If you have any picture that was taken on an iPhone 16 or iPhone 16 Pro in the Camera app, you can edit this later. Open Photos, tap Edit, and then you can swipe through all the same moods and undertones as before in the Camera app. On the iPhone 13, 14, and 15 models, in addition to the iPhone 16e and iPhone SE, photographic styles are a little more limited. In the camera, the photographic styles icon looks like a stack of boxes inside a ring. You can swipe through 5 different presets and adjust the tone and warmth sliders underneath. If you want a photographic style to be your new default, you can set that up. In Settings, Camera, tap Photographic Styles. Swipe through the options and tap Use at the bottom to pick one. If you change your mind, pick Standard or tap Cancel in the upper left. When you take a picture using a photographic style on these older iPhones, you can't edit or change the look afterwards. The color is part of the picture itself. But that is how you can use photographic styles on the iPhone to give all your pictures a really cool new aesthetic.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. let me show you how you can scan documents into your Mac using your iPhone. MacMost is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 2,000 supporters. Go to macmost.com/Patreon. There you could read more about it, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now you may think that in order to scan documents into your Mac that you need a scanner. But in fact, you can use your iPhone for this. I'm not talking about scanning to your iPhone and then transferring over to your Mac. I'm talking about using your iPhone as a scanner for the file to go directly to your Mac. So for my first example, I'm going to scan this 2-page document into my Mac using my iPhone, and I'm going to do it directly to a file. So here I am in the Finder, and if you select a folder, so let's say this examples folder here, and I control click on it, 2-finger click on a trackpad, right click on a mouse, I can see the context menu. One of the options you should see here is import from iPhone or iPad. And here I've got my iPhone and my iPad listed. Now the reason these are listed here is because they are using the same Apple ID, they are nearby, and I've got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi turned on for these devices. And they should appear automatically. There's really nothing for you to do. But if you want to dig more into this and what the requirements are, check out this page at Apple's site. And it shows you which apps support this feature, which is called Continuity Camera. And it gives you some step-by-steps as well as requirements for using it. So here in the context menu, I'm going to select Scan Documents. I can select Take Photo, just to take a regular photo, which is useful in other cases. But in this case, I'm going to choose Scan Documents. And my iPhone is automatically going to react to that by bringing up this scanning interface. And now I can position my iPhone to where it gets the full page in, and it should automatically take it. And then I'm going to go to the next page, and it should automatically take that as well. But if it doesn't for some reason, I can press this button that's here to automatically take it. I can also tap here to review the pages here. I can just swipe between them, and I can retake one. I can crop, and there's some other tools here as well. I can also trash it. If it looks okay in the review, I can tap Done and go back to scanning. Notice there are also options here, like for instance, I can turn off auto. So I have to use that shutter button there. I also can turn on and off the flash if I want. And I've got some options here. I can set it to color, grayscale, black and white, or photo. Those are the quality choices there. And when I'm done with the scan, on my iPhone here, I tap the Save button. And it's going to save. So here, if I look in the folder now, I'm going to see where it says Scanned Document. And I can select it, and I'll quick look, and I'll see the document right there. Since it is a PDF, if I double click on it, I can actually open it up in preview, or I can work with it some more if I like. For instance, I go to the markup tools here, and I can mark it up. I can use a selection tool here, for instance, and I can select an area of this page here, and then under Tools, I can go to Crop or Command K, so I can further adjust things in preview, just like I would with any other PDF. Of course, also, I can rename it now to something that makes more sense. So in addition to the context menu here in the folder, there are other ways to get to this functionality. For instance, if I was in icon view here, so I had some blank space to click on, I could bring up the context menu here and actually save the scan right to this same folder. You could also do it inside of apps. So for instance, here I am in preview. Instead of creating a new document or opening a document, I've got import right here, and I can import a scan from the iPhone. So I'm going to do it again here, and I'm just going to scan this receipt, and then I'm going to tap Save, and you can see here I've got that scan here. This is handy because I can now go in and edit it. So I'll go to markup tools here. I will crop it here to only what I need. And when I save it, I can actually save the format as a PDF. And you might find under Quartz Filter the ability to use a reduced file size, which will save something smaller. Or perhaps I can just save it as a JPEG. And I can set the resolution here and the quality. So notice if I save this, I'll just save it to the desktop. This saves a pretty small file right here, only 46K. So if you're looking to save some space and have smaller scans, that's one way to do it. But you could also scan directly into apps. So for instance, here I'm in Pages, and if I control click, right click, or 2-finger click, See, I can insert a photo or a scanned document right here inside of this document here. So I'll let it take that photo and then I'll save it. And you can see now I've got the image right inside of the Pages document. I don't have to save it in an intermediate file first. Note is another place where I can easily scan. I can go to File and then Insert from iPhone or iPad here, and I can scan a document right into a note. Or even an email message. I'll compose a new message here. If I want to scan something and have it go directly into here, I can Control click, right click, or two-finger click here, and I've got the same Insert menu to scan a document right into this message without having it be in a file first. So of course, one of the biggest advantages doing this is you don't have to buy a completely different device like a scanner or replace your printer with a printer scanner combination if you need to scan in occasional documents. Downsides are it can get unwieldy to do large documents. If you've got a 40-page document to get through, that's a lot of individual shots to take. But even that, if you don't need to do it too often, it's pretty easy to do it on your iPhone and save the money and space on a scanner. Another downside is size. This technique really doesn't do much to conserve size. So if you're worried about that, then you definitely want to scan into Preview and do things there to reduce the size before you save the file. Whereas a regular scanner may give you options to scan at pretty low resolution in grayscale all the time and create smaller PDFs. So I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.
The Reavis Smart Water Bottle is interesting because it doubles as an iPhone stand and camera gimbal. It also uses the Apple Find My network in case you leave your water bottle behind. The 700 milliliter stainless steel bottle will supposedly keep your drink cold for 24 hours and is 100% leak-proof. The ring on the top has a number of functions. It is a magnetic phone holder and gimbal, as well as a carry ring. It's not cheap at $89.99, but perhaps the multi-use functions of the bottle will interest you.
Apple TV Plus is the streaming service that initially launched with a focus on quality over quantity. But all these years later, they have the quantity too. There is so much good stuff to watch. Here are the shows that all of us at Cult of Mac are looking forward to watching most in 2025. So in the first half of this video, I'm going to go over all of the shows that are returning for a new season. And in the second half, I'll talk about all of the brand new series. And what better way to kick things off than to talk about the most hotly anticipated Season 2 of Apple's biggest and weirdest show, Severance, which comes back January 17. The brains behind the show, director Ben Stiller and creator-writer Dan Erickson, both of whom serve as executive producers on the show, took 3 long years to bring Season 2 to air. That's a long time to figure out how to follow up the dramatic and hugely popular first season. It introduced us to the crew of innies and outies working for the mysterious and seemingly sinister Lumen Industries. And of course, it explored the disquieting weirdness of the company's severance brain surgery, which separates work and home memories. With so much time to plan, write, and produce Season 2, hopefully our heroes in the macrodata refinement department, with supporting cast in Christopher Walken and Patricia Arquette, won't suffer the same fate as the characters of other popular blockbuster TV shows with somewhat controversial, bungled endings. Anyways, you can watch the first 8 minutes of the first episode of Season 2 right now by clicking here. The previous seasons of Mythic Quest might make it the quirkiest show on Apple TV Plus, and that's with plenty of competition. The gamer-themed workplace comedy is populated with a cast of deeply eccentric characters in one crazy situation after another. Personality disorders range from one boss who's immensely egotistical to another that's deeply neurotic, and don't forget the sociopath. Yet somehow Mythic Quest's writers make these characters genuinely likable and relatable. You'll root for them as they have to deal with underage game streamers, racist gamers, and so much more. The series returns to Apple TV Plus for its 4th and final season, starting on January 19. But a spin-off series, aptly titled Side Quest, launches on March 26. Criminal Record is a pretty typical crime mystery drama. You start with a simple phone call to the police that isn't entirely what it seems, kicking off an investigation that adds a brand new twist or revelation at just the right pace to keep you hooked the whole way through. There are literally dozens of shows in this exact format, but only Criminal Record stars the amazing Peter Capaldi, who you may know from Doctor Who and The Thick of It. Peter Capaldi is one of the most magnetic, captivating, and finest actors on television today. You come for Peter Capaldi, and you learn to appreciate his co-star and co-executive producer, Cush Jumbo, along the way. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the pair in Season 2. For All Mankind is an alternate history series that begins with the Soviet Union landing on the moon first before the United States in 1969. The space race never ends, with the Cold War superpowers continuing to up the ante over the years, causing rippling effects throughout history that multiply as the seasons go on. The rotating cast of characters rarely has a miss. They're all brilliantly written, perfectly cast, and captivating actors to watch. Season 4 ended with Margot, one of the main characters and brilliant rocket scientists, being captured and arrested by authorities, and a colony on Mars going rogue and stealing an asteroid to mine for its own use. So how will this affect life on Earth when Season 5 picks up in the year 2012? Apple TV Plus deserves heaps of credit for Foundation, not only for the ambition of adapting Isaac Asimov's epic series of novels about a galactic empire in decline, but for turning out a lavishly expensive and great-looking hit out of the first 2 seasons. After some cost-cutting delays and changes behind the scenes, Season 3 hit production in March 2024 and should air sometime in 2025. But the question is, will it stay great? Probably. In Asimov's classic story, much abridged to make for the series' modern cinematic TV, brilliant mathematician Dr. Harry Seldon realizes the galactic empire, spanning solar systems and galaxies, like a metastasized Rome run by a long line of cloned emperors, is doomed to collapse. And his efforts to create the Foundation Group to preserve humanity and civilization becomes outlawed activity across time and space. The first season of the Apple TV Plus series starring Godzilla was a big hit, and Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2 is due before the end of 2025. Season 1 had our characters, one played by screen legend Kurt Russell, discovering that there are giant monsters hiding all over the Earth. The Monarch organization from the MonsterVerse films studies them while trying to keep the US military from killing them. We already know Season 2 takes place on Skull Island, so expect King Kong to feature prominently in the upcoming episodes. Monarch Legacy of Monsters is pure, unadulterated kaiju fun. When Apple TV Plus began adapting Mick Herron's spy novels into the Slow Horses TV series, we loved the show and quickly devoured all 8 novels. They're as compulsively readable as the series is darkly funny, about a crew of MI5 intelligence agents one step away from dismissal. And we can look forward to rumpled former super spy Jackson Lamb, tightly wound MI5 number 2 Diana Taverner, and the rest of the stellar cast in Season 5's heart-pounding new episodes in 2025. And Season 6 has already been greenlit as well. You'd be hard-pressed to find somebody less suited for a career in highway robbery than English sweetheart Noel Fielding. And that's what makes The Completely Made-Up Adventures of Dick Turpin such a fun comedy. What if England's most infamous robber and murderer was actually a pretty nice guy? Turpin and his band of misfits deal with guards, thief-takers, witches, and their genuinely dangerous rivals, and yet somehow always come out on top. Season 2 is on the way, although we don't know exactly when. Apple TV Plus puts out the occasional movie, and the trailer for The Gorge sets up an intriguing mystery. What's at the bottom of this big gorge? The film focuses on two agents, played by Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, as they set out to guard the creepy gorge in the earth and find out what mysterious evil lurks within. The gorge also has a dose of romance, and so it'll be premiering on Valentine's Day. If you're a fan of The Wire, then you should mark your calendars for the premiere of Dope Thief on March 25th. Set in Philadelphia, Dope Thief is a crime drama starring Brian Tyree Hill from Bullet Train and Wagner Moura from Narcos. These two friends hit on the perfect crime, pose as DEA agents, and rob drug dealers who are too small to ever report it. They hit it big, but too late realize they robbed the wrong guy, a big-time drug dealer who won't report it, but will kill anyone and everyone involved. It sounds like an interesting premise, and it has a great cast and crew, including one episode directed by Ridley Scott. With The Studio, Apple TV Plus is finally making its contribution to a storied genre that loads of people love to hate: the movies and shows Hollywood makes about itself. So maybe we're just looking forward to hating it. We'll see. Will the new show, which comes from actor, writer, and producer Seth Rogen, reach the greats of Barton Fink or Barry? Or will it just suck self-importantly, like The Player or The Last Tycoon? The Studio features Rogen as the head of an embattled and totally made up Continental Studios, with a cast that includes not only the reliably funny Rogen, but Catherine O'Hara, Catherine Hahn, and guest star Bryan Cranston, plus guest spots by the likes of Martin Scorsese and Charlize Theron. Well, it could be a bloated Hollywood monstrosity. Or it could be hilarious. To be honest, the premise of Government Cheese doesn't sound like a great show on paper. It's billed as a surrealist family comedy set in the San Fernando Valley in 1969. It tells the tale of a man newly released from prison who has trouble readapting to family life. It sounds dreadful, and describing the comedy as surrealist could just be a gentle way of saying that it's going to be painfully unfunny. But it stars the amazing David Oyelowo, an award-winning British-American actor best known for playing Martin Luther King in Selma. Oyelowo is always fantastic, but he's never done a comedy before, so we'll be checking out Government Cheese, surrealist or not. Murderbot has just a great premise. The sci-fi thriller follows the complicated feelings of a killer robot that has become sentient and has started to empathize with its victims. Murderbot has to hide its free will and its secret lifelong dream: to be left alone and watch TV. Based on an award-winning series of acclaimed novels, the 10-part series stars Alexander Skarsgård, is directed by Chris and Paul Weitz, and Foundation's David S. Goyer is running the show. Although it has been adapted into a video game and a graphic novel, William Gibson's landmark 1984 cyberpunk novel Neuromancer has never been adapted into a TV show until now. Or at least sometime relatively soon. At any rate, if Apple can credibly adapt a sci-fi behemoth like Foundation, it can probably make the most out of Neuromancer as well. I mean, fans of neither show would have ever thought it possible to be seen reasonably on screen until this particular golden age of big-budget streaming television. Gibson's novel, which won the prestigious Nebula, Philip K. Dick, and Hugo Awards, served as part one of a trilogy, with 2 more books following. Show creators Graham Rowland and J.D. Dillard are working directly with Gibson on the adaptation. Star City will be a For All Mankind spin-off, depicting the same series of events from the perspective of the Soviet Union. While For All Mankind has taken the series well into the mid-2000s, Star City will take a peek behind the Iron Curtain, starting over back in the late 60s. In real life, the CCCP never succeeded in building its lunar N1 rocket, so maybe we'll see what it would have taken for that to be possible. And fans of For All Mankind are looking forward to seeing the return of some familiar faces, like Roscosmos director Sergei Nikolov. And with that, we have our list of the most exciting shows you should watch on Apple TV Plus in 2025. Apple TV Plus is available for just $9.99 a month. You can subscribe by clicking here or in the link in the video description. It is available to watch on any Apple device, including the similarly named Apple TV in the Apple TV app. which is also available on a plethora of smart TVs, smart devices, and platforms, and on the web. Remember to like.
Apple just released the massive iOS 18.4 update. Let me walk you through everything that is new. For me, one of the headlining features is the new Recipe Manager. This is actually hidden inside of a new food section within Apple News. If you open the News app, hit follow, and then tap on food, you'll be brought to the new food section. You'll also see the food stuff sprinkled throughout your regular newsfeed as well. It's full of articles and stories about food, cooking, and restaurants. But it also has a built-in dedicated recipe manager. You can search recipes for an ingredient, or you can filter it by meal, diet, speed, and more. Each recipe is broken down into things like the ingredients and the recipe itself. Ingredients can be tapped to mark them off, and when you cook it, anytime there's things like a timer, there's a really cool little modal that pops right up and makes it easy to set and follow along. I've said this before, but this interface would be perfect for some sort of Apple Smart Display. There have been a lot of rumors about that, so if you want to learn more, I've linked a video here where I talk about it. Like I said, there's a full recipe manager here, so you can save and share the ones you love. And yes, your saved recipes can be filtered too. I'm a little surprised this wasn't broken out into its own app, like passwords. But I guess it makes sense since the source is basically just a bunch of publications inside of Apple News. Apple Intelligence has a number of new features with this update. Priority notifications automatically determines which notifications are most important and puts them at the top of Notification Center. It's very handy and should improve with time. It's another of my favorite new features and is enabled in Settings, then Notifications. This can be set to on a per app basis, so maybe you want to ignore certain ones, make sure it's turned on for others. For iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max users, they can now use visual intelligence. This is the feature that allows you to use the camera to scan your surroundings and perform various actions. This can be tied to a shortcut, added to the lock screen, added to Control Center, or tied to the Action button. You can point it at a poster and add a date to your calendar, translate some text you see on a menu, solve a math equation, or just shop. In Image Playground, there is a new sketch style to choose from. I still don't use Image Playground much, but it is good to see Apple work to improve it. Let me know down below in the comments if you use Image Playground, and if so, what for? For those that remember, Sketch was actually first previewed at WWDC, so kind of nice that it actually got released. Apple Intelligence itself supports 8 new languages and 2 new English locales. Those include French, Germany, Spanish, Japanese, Italian, and more. The podcast widget has 2 new styles available for both your library and followed shows. In the podcast app, when you view your profile, there are 2 new quick links to podcast settings or to notification settings for the app. For smart home users, both Matter-enabled robotic vacuum cleaners and smoke detectors are supported in Apple Home. Right now, the Ecovacs X8 Pro Omni is the only model that fully supports this feature for vacuums. I again did a whole dedicated video on how to use those that you can find linked here. The short version is, though, they can be controlled with Siri, including which rooms you want to clean. You can also change modes as well and include them in automations like vacuuming whenever you leave the house. Real quick too, I don't see the alert on mine since I am on the new home architecture, but it looks as if Apple will be pushing people to that if you haven't already upgraded to it. If it doesn't prompt you, don't worry about it, but you might want to be aware. Control Center has a ton of changes, big and small. There are 4 new controls for ambient music that can be added. They are sleep, chill, productivity, and well-being. When you play them, they have an automatic playlist that shows in the dynamic island, and if you tap them, they can jump into a hidden dedicated app where you can skip through the various tracks in those playlists. There's also Apple Intelligence section now for Control Center with options for Talk to Siri, Type to Siri, and Visual Intelligence. These controls can be added anywhere other controls can be added, like to the action button or the lock screen. The cellular control now accurately reflects the signal strength you currently have. Volume and brightness turn gray when too low or off, but will go to yellow and blue respectively when active. And the focus control has up and down arrows now on it. Similar to Control Center, Apple has added a bunch of new shortcuts. It was really hard for me to pin these all down. Some of these are actually being added and removed. There's ones for opening a particular messages thread or showing sports scores. They were likely being added for the new version of Siri, but anyone who uses the Shortcuts app in general will be able to use them. There are new emoji available, including face with bags under the eyes, fingerprint, splatter, a beat, a dead tree, harp, and a shovel. By the way, when you are looking at emoji, Genmoji is now more clearly labeled, hopefully making it easier to understand how to create your own. In Safari, when you open a new tab, it shows your recent searches in case you need to go back to them. This can also be disabled if you don't want it. Data can be imported and exported from Safari now, useful if you're changing browsers. In the App Store, there are new AI summaries of reviews so you can get a better idea of an app before you buy it or download it. Plus, app installs and updates can be paused and resumed without losing your progress. Really handy. Photos app continues to get better with a few changes I know you've all been asking for. First, albums can now be sorted by date modified. You also have the option to disable recently viewed and recently shared collections for privacy reasons. There are new filters for your library, including the ability to show just the photos that are not contained in an album. Finally, this is huge for me. Media types and utilities can also now be reordered, so I can move screenshots to the top and not have to swipe through 2 pages before I get to it. And finally, when you import photos to a PC or Mac, hidden photos will not be included if Use Face ID is enabled. With Apple Vision Pro, there's a new Vision Pro app. It automatically installs on your device if you own an Apple Vision Pro. It gives you some basic info on the device and a way to see new experiences and download content to the device directly from your iPhone. The best part, though, is it makes giving a demo way easier. When someone beside you puts on Vision Pro and your iPhone or iPad is nearby, a modal will appear asking if you want to enable guest mode. You can say yes and grant access to whichever apps you'd like. Before, you'd have to put on Vision Pro, then go all through that in Control Center, then take it off and hand it over. Way easier. And speaking of simplified setups, just like how you can use your iPhone to set up a secondary iOS device or an Apple TV, you can now do the same quick setup process with a new Mac. Just open your new Mac, bring your iPhone near, and it'll guide you through the process, already logging you in and authenticating. Oh, and a new setup assistant makes it easier for creating a child device with the appropriate settings. When playing a video, the jump back and jump forward buttons now have really slick animations to them. In France, both Orange and Sosh support RCS, and here stateside, Mint Mobile, Google Fi, Tello, Ultra Mobile, and US Mobile are also able to turn on RCS. Those are basically all the T-Mobile MVNOs, if that wasn't apparent. And when viewing your savings account and wallet, you now must authenticate with Face ID or Touch ID. Apple's also changed some wording here. It used to say subscriptions and payments. Now it says pre-authorized payments. CarPlay. It'll now show 3 rows of icons on exceptionally large screens. There's better support for EV chargers too, including support for NACS locations. Lastly, for CarPlay, sports is a newly supported category. That means soon we will start to see sports apps show up. There are some now like MLB, but those are technically under the audio umbrella, not specifically sports. That's why they've been available sometime before this new category was designated. The privacy indicator that shows at the top of the screen has changed position, and there's a new black background behind it, making it easier to see in certain, different apps. And previews for App Store links, like in Safari, now show more information about an app before you fully tap into it. There's a new sub-menu for the camera app under camera control, to tell it what app to open. And when updated themselves, the USB-C version of AirPods Max will now support lossless audio and wired audio connections, either purely over USB-C or with the USB-C to auxiliary adapter that Apple sells. It's a lot of changes. This is a pretty big update and comes alongside other updates for iPad, Mac, Vision Pro, Apple Watch, HomePod, Apple TV. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of this update, if you've got it already installed, and if you spot any other changes. Otherwise, stay tuned for more Apple news, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released macOS Sequoia 15.4. macOS 15.4 Sequoia is available around the world at the same time for everyone on all macOS 15 supported devices. And this came in at a fairly large 6.24 gigabytes on my M4 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro, and this released alongside many other updates such as iOS 18.4, iPadOS 18.4, tvOS and HomePodOS, visionOS updates, and updates for older devices as well. However, at the time of this video, watchOS 11.4 is not out yet. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the build number and talk about what's new. So we'll go to the Apple in the upper left, go to About This Mac, and as you can see it says Sequoia 15.4, and it has a build number of 24E248. And we have quite a few updates and feature changes here. The first thing has to do with software updates. So if we go in here, this is a small change, but if we check for an update, give it just a second here. Once it's done checking, this looks a little bit different. We have a little check mark that we're on the latest version, and it says your Mac is up to date. And if we go into the Mail app, we have the Mail app that matches what we have on iOS now. If we go to Show Mail categories, you can see that we have some options with Primary, Transactions, Updates, Promotions, and then All Mail. We can split this into whatever we'd like, turn it off, or use it however we'd like. I personally don't care for it, so I turn it off and use the traditional setup. But you can see what it looks like here, and it's just like what we had before, or you can use it again with the categories. If we close out of this, the next new update has to do with Apple Intelligence. If you're using Apple Intelligence, it's now available in more languages. In English, it's available in India and Singapore, French for France and Canada, German for Germany, Italian for Italy, Japanese for Japan, Korean for South Korea, Portuguese for Brazil, simplified Chinese, and then Spanish for Spain, Latin America, and the US. Another update they've made has to do with Image Playground. And if we go into Image Playground, you'll see we have a new style for Sketch. If we go into this one here, we'll open it up, go to Edit, and you'll see we have Style. We now have the Sketch style, illustration, or animation. So Sketch was shown off with the initial release of Apple Intelligence, and it's now been added to macOS as well. If we go into Messages, we have an update there. Within Messages, we now have the latest emoji to comply with the latest Unicode standard, such as a fingerprint, a harp, a splat, a new face, and aside from the emoji, Apple has updated the Syrian flag to the most recent version. So all of these are available now in macOS 15.4. Within Photos, we have an update as well that goes along with Apple Intelligence. If we go into Photos, we're greeted with a new splash screen talking about new collections, more utilities, featured photos, and search, cleanup, and create. We'll click on Get Started. I'm in Photos, in Favorites, and you'll have Filter here in the upper right like we always have, but we now have Not in an Album. This is also consistent across our collections, and every other album that you're in now has the same filter options. Also, if we see down here on the left, we can go to Memories, and under Memories, we now have a plus button if you have an Apple Intelligence supported device. Click the plus, and you'll be able to create a memory just like you can on iOS. However, this has been sitting for about 2 hours and not working yet. It says more photos and videos need to process to create a memory. Keep this Mac connected to power until photos and videos finish processing. So unfortunately at this time it hasn't finished processing, but you can create them just like you can on iPhone. We go down to Utilities, we can now click and drag and rearrange this. So if maybe we want illustrations in the upper left or maybe recently viewed in the upper left, you can move it around wherever you'd like. The same is true with media types. For long exposure, I could put that here, put portrait in the upper left. Maybe I want live photos over here. You can move these all around now. If we go into a photo and edit it, within a photo, if I edit this photo, we'll go into Edit, and under Edit, we can go to Cleanup. Within Cleanup, we now have Erase and Retouch. So we have two separate brushes, and maybe I want to get rid of the flash here on the iPhone SE. We can just click and get rid of it. Then we can reset it, and so we have two separate brushes now. If we go into this day, you'll see here under Filter, again, we have the same consistent filtering options. So it's really nice that they've updated it and just made it more consistent all throughout. Another thing that's great is maybe you have an iPhone you've plugged into a Mac that you have hidden folders in. You can hide those using Face ID, and if you have that enabled, they'll no longer show up on the Mac by default. So you won't see them if you plug them into maybe a public Mac or something else. Your hidden photos will stay hidden. Also, if we go up to View, we have a couple different options. We can hide recently viewed and shared. We also have filtering options here where we can filter not in an album, and everything is consistent throughout. Next, if we go into settings, we'll scroll down to where it says wallpaper. And if we scroll down a little bit further, you'll see we have a new wallpaper for Radial Sky Blue. This goes along with the new light blue color that we have on the MacBook Air. It was available on the MacBook Air at launch, but it wasn't available on all the other Macs, and it's since been added. If we go to add a new widget, go under Edit Widgets. Under Podcasts on the left there, you'll see that we have some new ones for Library and Shows. So these have been added, and you can use them on your desktop or wherever you'd like. So if you want to utilize those, they're now available. If we go into the Podcasts app, within Podcasts, the first time you open it, you'll see a new splash screen for Add Favorite Categories or See Categories in Library. If you search on the left, and as you start to type, it now updates in real time, showing things relevant to what you've typed. So you'll see 9 to 5 Mac Happy Hour, The Mac Rumors Show, and others. If you use the new Passwords app, there's an update here. So if you put in your password, you'll now see a new indicator if you're using two-factor authentication rotating codes, where it is a circle in the upper right and then sort of depletes the circle to let you know it's moving on to the next code. If you're setting up a new Mac for the first time, such as this MacBook Air M4, you can get to the point where you select Setup with Phone or iPad. Tap Continue, and it says Looking for Nearby Devices, and it finds it here for Setup New Mac. We can tap Continue, and then we can set it up just like we do with our iPhones and our iPad. Scan the code here on the screen, it will connect, and then set it up. So give it a moment, and then you can walk through the setup process this way. Now, while I'm on the latest version of macOS 15.4, if we go into Shortcuts, you'll see I have changed Safari settings. These are saved from my iPhone, where we could save some of the settings, and if we search for actions, they haven't been updated here for some reason. So you'll see it says Get Article using Safari, but there's a new one that says Get Settings. So there's settings updates on iOS that I'm not seeing on macOS for some reason for things such as books and many other apps as well. If we go into the App Store, maybe we'll go under an app here, give it a second to load under Discover, and maybe we'll go into this one here, Final Cut Pro, scroll down to where we have reviews. You'll now see reviews that are sort of summarized by Apple Intelligence. You don't see them on every app, but they do start to show up after a while. So if you go to See All, sometimes you'll see one that's summarized by it. Within the Home app, if you're using Home, it now supports robot vacuums that support Matter. That's been available in iOS and iPadOS and macOS now with the latest update. If we go into our settings, and then we go down to our settings for Siri, under our voice, we have American Voice 4. However, there's new voices for Australian. We have 4 voices total, where we had 2 before. So we have Voice 1, Voice 2, Voice 3, and Voice 4 now. If you're using Find My hasn't been really updated anywhere else other than it's now available in South Korea. If we go into Safari, within Safari, maybe we'll go to Apple. Within Apple, we'll go to Safari in the upper left, go to Connection Security Details, and this is all new. We can show the certificate, hide the certificate, see more information about it with details and more. So this is just a new option here in the upper left. If you have a new Mac Studio with an M3 Ultra processor, they've increased the default maximum memory allocation limit available to the GPU on the M3 Ultra with 256 gigabytes or 512 gigabytes of unified memory. They've also improved the transcoding performance in Final Cut Pro on the Mac Studio with M3 Ultra, probably to use more available threads. Another thing is they've fixed quite a few issues in this update. For example, they resolved an issue where certain external displays may not be able to turn off night shift. If you're using screen time, they've fixed this as well, the same as they did on the iPhone with iOS 18.4, where app limits would persist before after a child uninstalled and reinstalled an app. This has been fixed. They've also fixed an issue where VoiceOver navigates elements in incorrect orders within music. They've also addressed an issue where a Braille display may show an incorrect line when navigating lines with left or right arrows. All of those have been updated in macOS 15.4. If we go to Safari again and go to Apple's Security Update website, and on Apple's Security Release website, you'll see all of the updates released today. And if we go down to macOS Sequoia 15.4, it looks like there's about 100 of these. I have not counted them just yet, but you can see how many there are, from everything from dock, where it says an app may be able to modify protected parts of the file system. They fixed this. The issue was addressed by removing the vulnerable code. And then they have the CVE number and who helped them find this issue. So you'll see quite a few updates here. There's a ton of them in this particular update. So if you're wondering if you should install macOS 15.4, I definitely would, just for these particular updates. There's about 100 or more of them, and I'll go through and count them a little bit later, but definitely for the security updates, some nice improvements, and I've had no issues running it so far. As far as performance seems to be pretty good. As you'll see, I'm scrolling through using Final Cut Pro, just working on things. It seems to be nice and fast. And battery life seems to be about the same as well. You'll see on this device, battery health is at 100%. I'm using normal battery, and it's on optimized battery charging. On battery, I have it set to automatic for the power handling, but on power, I usually use high power. So this is just incredibly fast on this update. I've really noticed no difference whatsoever. Also, if we go to General and take a look at storage, we can see how much storage is being used here. So you'll see optimized storage. If we scroll down to the bottom, give it a second here, you'll see under Other Used and Shared, we're using under 1 gigabyte. And if we go to macOS, it's using a huge amount with Apple Intelligence, 10.58 gigabytes. So it's a pretty large install, over 20 gigabytes. It's a couple gigabytes larger than iOS at this point. As far as anything else, well, that's it for macOS 15.4. If you've noticed anything I haven't mentioned, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, and I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.